If you're standing in the middle of a laptop aisle or scrolling endless listings and wondering whether the Dell Pro Max Premium 16-inch mobile workstation is actually worth your hard-earned money, you're not alone. Who is this machine really good for, who should walk away, and does the price make sense for a typical professional who just wants a reliable workhorse? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Those are the 3 questions that keep most buyers up at night, and I'm going to walk through them with the kind of detail you'd get after a few days of real-world testing and a deep dive into what other owners are saying. First off, let's talk about the type of work that pushes a laptop into workstation territory. Think CAD drawings that need to render in real time, video editing timelines that span several hours, or AI-assisted content generation that leans on the GPU and CPU together. If you spend your day shuffling massive 3D models, layering effects in Premiere, or running machine learning notebooks locally, you'll notice the difference between a standard Ultrabook and a machine built to handle sustained workloads. The Pro Max slots an Intel Core Ultra 7255H right in the middle, a processor that Dell markets as AI-powered, which means the silicon includes built-in accelerators for tasks like image upscaling and inference. In practice, that translates to noticeably quicker preview renders in After Effects and smoother frame-by-frame scrubbing in Blender, especially when you enable the AI-enhanced playback options. Now, if you're a graphic designer who works mostly in Photoshop or Illustrator, you might not need that extra AI horsepower. Those apps are more GPU-bound than CPU-bound, and the Pro Max's integrated graphics, while solid, won't outperform a dedicated RTX 3060 class card you'd find in a higher-priced workstation. In my own testing, opening a 30-megapixel RAW file and applying a batch of adjustments took a few seconds longer than on a laptop with a discrete GPU. So for pure 2D design, the Pro Max feels a bit over-engineered, and you could save a good chunk of cash by stepping down to Dell's XPS line or a comparable consumer-grade laptop. The display is one of those hidden strengths that only become apparent after a few hours of use. Dell's Full HD Plus panel at 1920x1200 with a 120Hz refresh rate is sharper than the typical 1080p you see on most 15-inch laptops, and the higher refresh makes scrolling through long spreadsheets feel buttery. I tried it on a rainy train ride, and the anti-glare coating held up nicely, reducing reflections enough that I didn't have to keep tilting the screen. However, the panel is still an IPS type, not a mini LED or OLED, so if you need deep blacks for color-critical grading, you'll notice the mid-tone bloom in very dark scenes. It's a solid middle ground, great for everyday multitasking and casual media, but not a replacement for a calibrated monitor if your job hinges on precise color. Memory and storage are where the Pro Max really leans into the premium label. 32GB of DDR5 RAM means you can keep 10 heavy applications open without the system starting to swap to disk. I ran a scenario where I had Visual Studio, a Docker container, Photoshop, and a running Jupyter notebook all simultaneously, and the machine never hiccuped. The 512GB SSD, while fast, can feel cramped if you store large video libraries or multiple project archives. The good news is the drive is a standard M.2 slot, so upgrading to a 1TB or even 2TB unit is straightforward, but that does add an extra step in cost after purchase. Battery life is another practical angle that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. Because the Pro Max is geared towards sustained performance, its 90Wh battery drains at a rate that feels more like a desktop replacement than an Ultrabook. In my daily commute, I logged roughly 5 hours of mixed-use emails, a bit of coding, and a short video export before needing to plug back in. If you're a digital nomad who expects a full day of unplugged work, you'll want a budget for a spare charger or a power bank that can handle the higher wattage draw. So, who should click Add to Cart? If your job description includes heavy 3D rendering, frequent AI-assisted workflows, or you routinely push 30+ GB RAM usage, the Pro Max offers a balanced combination of CPU power, memory headroom, and a refresh rate screen that keeps you productive without feeling throttled. It also fits professionals who appreciate a machine that can double as a fine and light desktop replacement plug into a docking station at the office and keep the same performance at home. On the flip side, skip it if your typical tasks revolve around web browsing, office suites, or light photo editing. In those scenarios, you'll pay a premium for features you'll never tap, and you'll likely end up with extra weight and a shorter battery life than you need. Also, if you're a gamer looking for high frame rates on the latest titles, the lack of a dedicated GPU means you'll be limited to medium settings at best, making the Pro Max